I've been in the job market for about a year. If you ask me to describe this past year, I would just describe it as brutal. At average of 160 applications to get a job, I believe it 100% because I think I've put in more. And I'm not saying that because, oh my gosh, I'm so unhappy. I'm unemployed. I don't have a job. I have a job, right? My job has contingencies and things, and it requires you to, be on the prowl. And it has been tough. And I'm grateful things have winded down, but my God, dude. I mean, when I talk to people about jobs, I'm like, hey, you got to be willing to put in 500 apps. And the truth is, you're not going to put them in all at once. It's probably going to take you a year, and that's just where we're at. So he's on the right page already.
While nearly half of full-time workers are not even earning a living wage. It raises the question, if companies are so desperate for workers, why is it so difficult to get a job that provides the most basic necessities? While the concept of a good job has drastically evolved throughout history, predominantly reserved for the wealthy merchants, skilled artisans, or the societal elite, it wasn't until after World War II that stable, well-paying jobs with clear upward mobility actually became widely accessible to the modern workforce. With the majority of other countries devastated by the war, the United States emerged as the global economic powerhouse, with an industrial base so dominant that Pennsylvania alone produced more steel in 1945 than Germany and Japan combined, resulting in an unprecedented demand for industrial labor, where by 1960, despite over half the workforce still not even having a high school diploma, manufacturing jobs continued to provide stable middle-class income.
It always comes back to this. They always bring up manufacturing. It's very clear that the best of those days are behind us. You know, I think it's amazing that there was a golden era where America was really leading in manufacturing. But I think that manufacturing economy was just a stepping stone to what we could get into today, which is a technology driven age where technology is supposed to make things easier. And I think the way that we talk about traditional jobs and what that means for a household, the fact that the conversation hasn't really changed over the past 30 years and the job market's still being talked about like it's the same job market of the last 30 to 40, 50 years is where I think we failed. We have failed to innovate the perspective of what we look at as work unto itself because everyone is still expecting get one job, that job will provide for you and your family. That's not the case. And it's kind of stopped being the case for some time. Now it's, hey, what is a job going to look like? And what does work mean? What does income mean, right? In the future. And it might mean multiple streams of revenue, but it also might mean having to tweak the economy a little bit and define how we share revenue from what the companies make and the people who work for them, but also the people that surround them. From I don't want to get too deep into that. We'll sort of see how things
For
continue
millions
to
of
develop.
Americans, where rather than relying on extensive external qualifications, hiring was based on professionalism and a strong work ethic. As major US corporations adhere to a retain and reinvest approach by channeling profits back into their employees to prioritize long term growth, resulting in the median family income rising from $3,000 in 1947, or roughly $44,600 today, to $5,600 by 1960, or roughly $61,100 today, allowing suburban developments to consist of factory workers and office managers.
Inflation is a bitch, man. Oh my gosh. Those equivalent numbers are insane to even hear.
Living side by side. However, one of the most overlooked factors that define this golden age of capitalism was simply the tremendous purchasing power of the dollar. Throughout the 1950s, even minimum wage workers could afford an entire month's rent with less than a week and a half of full-time work. Today, when accounting for the average rent in the United States, sitting at $1,623 a month, the
Damn, boy. That's the average rent. A band and a half. A band and a half, bro. This is just, it's brutal.
the average rent in the United States sitting at $1,623 a month, the average American would need to earn $27.05 per hour, or roughly $56,264 a year, to pay rent with a week and a half of full time work. And yet, 62% of the workforce makes less than $27 an hour, highlighting
Brutal.
Fighting the substantial burden workers now have to face as the dollar has lost 92% of its value since 1950. But despite both the dollar and
it's sad because you hear how he dropped that insane inflation statistic, right? Of how much a dollar has lost its value since 1950. Like, look at this chart, man. This is crazy. This is how much a dollar has lost its value. I think the saddest part about it is it has nothing to do with the consumer. Not much. Like, it really just doesn't have much to do with the consumer. It has more to do with central government, printing of money, demand. Pretty simple. And it's funny, you see in modern economics, if you look closely at this chart, you'll see something, right? You go down here like 1950 to 1974. That is 24 years. Inflation was probably maybe 1%, maybe. Then look at this from 1974, around the time we got taken off that gold standard, if I'm not mistaken, 1974 to 2007, right? Or if you do another 20 years to 1995, look at that. That's crazy. That's the inflation. That's probably when inflation now does hit that 3%, 4%, even having years of 5+% inflation in this country. Whose fault is that? Technology was getting better from 1974 to 1995. You start getting computers, you more complex vehicles, better housing, better tech across the board, better medicine. But then inflation does this and you demean the lifestyle of people. It's because people don't benefit off of technological innovation. It has become so true in this country and sort of around the globe that the better technology gets, the more they try to outsource humans. They don't just try to outsource the work. They try to outsource people and their livelihoods. So because technology doesn't have a brain, technology can work 24/7. Technology can, but we never reallocated the extra wealth generated by technology to those who would have earned it. And that sounds very socialist to say, but it's also just kind of humanitarian to say. Why should the cost of capitalism and a better life, technologically speaking, why should that be offset, or why do we have to offset that by getting rid of people's means to afford living? I think it's ridiculous.
has lost 92% of its value since 1950. But despite both the dollar and manufacturing roles remaining relatively strong.
That's enough on the Cold War. He's given us a whole history lesson, how the working class became poor, why companies began removing good jobs. Yeah, I mean, you see this? Companies began removing good jobs to eliminate labor unions. American jobs were outsourced, sent overseas. LOL, how Ronald Reagan destroyed good jobs. We're not going to get political today, but we all know Ronald Reagan's an interesting guy. The cost of Bill Clinton outsourcing record amounts of good jobs. So it always comes that people always talk about outsourcing. Outsourcing only sucks if you can't replace the jobs you outsourced with better jobs. I believe you can outsource low jobs that just don't require much. You know, and I don't want to get too deep into that because I don't want to demean people who do those jobs. But if you replace those jobs with something even better, if there's something even better, that's good. But if you just replace the good jobs, you outsource them, and then you don't replace them, it actually hurts everybody. Wow. Let's start here. Why CEO pay?
What if you can create your own website by saying, this is what I want? With Wix, you can.
Times higher.
If you're a producer who hates AI, this plugin might change your mind. This is Reimagining CoProducer. You can take any sample you find.
And while the media championed low unemployment alongside soaring corporate profits, the reality for middle-class families couldn't have been further from this portrayal. As a result of Ronald Reagan lifting the SEC restrictions on corporate stock buybacks in 1982, legalizing what had previously been considered market manipulation, companies more than doubled their stock buybacks following Clinton's trade agreements, while also increasing the size of stock option programs by over 40%, effectively allowing top-level executives to profit immensely from the fabricated increase in stock prices. With Charles Clough, chief investment strategist at Merrill Lynch, referring to this as a pure earnings management scheme, where between 1989 and 1998, middle-income families captured just 3% of total stock market gains, but absorbed nearly 40% of the historic rise in consumer debt, alongside unprecedented levels of personal bankruptcy rates. And while it is often still referenced that incomes grew throughout the 1990s, this is actually largely a result of Americans working substantially longer hours, where in 1998, the typical middle-income family worked a total of 3,885 hours, an increase of 247 hours, or about 6 weeks more than a similar family worked in 1989, with international data showing that workers in the United States put in more hours per year than workers in every other advanced economy except for Portugal. And while the creation of 22 million jobs made for a compelling headline, it is estimated that between 40 to 45% of those jobs were concentrated in low-skill, low-wage service work, with
That's a big thing. That's a really big thing. A lot of the jobs that do get created, people don't talk about the quality of the work. You know, it's really easy to just force McDonald's, hey, can you guys hire like 100 more people this year and then tack that on to whatever. But if the job is part-time, if the job has pay that isn't substantial enough to actually, warrant a lifestyle that has dignity, then you essentially you didn't do anything. You just gave some busy work to someone as they continue to struggle and just enough to survive. If that, they may not even be surviving. And so that's why it's so sad to even hear some of the statistics, because you hear economists speak on the labor market and they're always like, oh, yeah, well, we added X amount of jobs. Okay, but how much do those jobs pay? Everyone goes quiet. Everyone goes quiet. Then you see the other statistics. 60% of people don't have $400 in case of an emergency. And then all the companies are like, yo, we got record-breaking profits. Make it make sense. I don't even think that's a left or right type of thing. That's just a common sense. There's something wrong with the system. If CEOs are getting paid the highest they've ever been paid, and then people are still struggling to make ends meet and they work, for salaries.
More hours of
Let's
so-called
get on, man.
high-wage opportunities, calm bubble, where despite worsening economic conditions amongst the working class, the societal answer was simply to just send more kids to college. As millennials became the most educated generation in history, they entered the labor market during the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, facing a youth unemployment rate of 19.5%, nearly double the national average, with nearly half of recent college graduates being forced into low-wage service jobs despite carrying an average student debt burden of $40,000. And while mid-wage occupations accounted for 60% of the jobs lost during the recession, they made up only 27% of the jobs regained post-recovery. Meanwhile, low-wage jobs, which had accounted for just 21% of recession losses, made up 58% of all new jobs created, pushing those without a college degree or those unable to secure a stable position after graduation even further into low-skill, low-wage, dead-end roles, further eroding the foundation of traditional career pathways, particularly for white-collar workers. Where as a result of stagnant economic conditions, alongside the 2020 global crisis, only 24% of current vacancies are now filled with internal candidates, a 66% decrease in just the last 50 years.
Oof, man. This is serious. It's funny. I think that 2008 housing crisis for my generation that graduated college around COVID and during COVID, that will be another one of those, historical events that they talk about how difficult getting a job became after that, right? For millennials, there was a recession that followed '08, and it was very clear that things were very difficult. And then things, I guess, picked up or normalized. I'm hoping the same for our generation, but that post-COVID, boy, it literally feels like the world's never gonna, normalize. From that, and especially with the advent of AI, I think that's what separates all this. It's like there's been plenty of recessions in the past 50 years, 100 years. With the advent of a technology that literally can replace people, not help people in their work, but actually replace them, it's going to get crazy.
years, where 66% of US companies also outsource at least one department, resulting in approximately 300,000 American jobs being outsourced annually. Meanwhile, the rise of automation and artificial intelligence threatens to displace an additional 45.3 million workers by 2030, eliminating entire categories of work that once provided a pathway to a middle-class lifestyle, where since 1990, over 60% of all new paid and non-supervisory jobs have been concentrated in low-wage, low-hour service roles.
I dare you to let me build you a completely free e-commerce store preloaded with 20 handpicked products that are trending all over the world.
And despite the majority of
Yeah, no, facts. Flacco, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, even hearing this guy speak on the ability for people to work and live, regular lives, I just don't think you can blame people anymore, even for the skill sets. Because I'm like, now we're seeing people with great skill sets not being able to afford life. But then on top of that, I just don't know what happened in this country to the work hard. Like, if you work hard, you'll be okay. I think in this country now, working hard isn't enough. And sometimes even working smart is not enough. And even if you're doing both, you still may not have enough. And I'm not one of those people that loves to make victims out of people, because I believe if you're able-bodied, you have a chance at sustaining and taking care of yourself. But it'd be so ignorant to just say, just go out there and get a job. I love when I hear like the older generation, they're like, bruh, go to the office, bruh. Just go to the office, ask them for an application. Fam, are you crazy? That shit ain't happening no more, bro. You're not going to get nothing these days unless you have a plan. And it's so much to execute and deliver on a plan. I don't think people talk about it enough. You feel me? You laughing. I'm right there with you, gang.
job openings being in the service industry, even if you have a college degree. If your resume is filled with experience in a grocery store, a restaurant, a retail chain, this is actually leading to automatic rejections by the ATS software or suppression in job search platforms like Indeed or LinkedIn. Because in the recruiter's eyes, it signals class. And when 89% of HR leaders admit they actively avoid hiring recent graduates, while nearly 40% of entry-level jobs demand 3 to 5 years of experience, the global
entry-level jobs demanding 3 to 5 years of experience. I've solved this already. I have a solution for this. I believe the government needs to make job applications legal documents that companies have to be held to. If your job says, I want to hire 0 to 1 years, it has to be someone that they hire 0 to 1 years. They can't skip and then go hire the 3 to 5 year person. Because what that does is it sets false expectations for candidates. You're coming out of college and you're applying to the jobs that say they're entry level, and they're not. They're hiring more experienced people. And they need to be treated like legal documents, because that's what your contract is when you sign. That's what it is in every other aspect of the workforce. But then with the job applications, companies are allowed to lie. If you lie on your resume, you can be fired. But if a company lies on its application, there's no consequences. We got to fix that. We got to. And then in the chat, job or not, we have to create our own businesses, find a skill and maximize. No, absolutely. We have to. I mean, we're always going to have to hold each other accountable. You feel me? We always have to hold each other accountable. And ourselves for as long as we're alive, because at the end of the day, you can't depend on the government to do it for you, your family to do it for you, or your friends. But it is fucked up that we're in a system now where your efforts will go in vain. Some people were putting some freaking efforts out there, bro. And I'm not going to toot my own horn, but even me, like I've committed to getting a whole master's degree while I'm working, because I know I got to keep working and adding, you know what I'm saying, shit to my bag so that I can be a good candidate. And it's still tough. It's still tough. So let's see.
Pressures and competition for what few good jobs remain has resulted in getting a quality job to become seemingly impossible, especially as the American dream now.
Boy, look at that chart, y'all. How much it costs to achieve the American dream. It's fucked up when the South is 140K plus. That's fucked up, bro. You know what I'm saying? Well, I love how Ohio's still cheap. At this point, I'm gonna just have to move to one of these states, man. Let's see what we got. But like, what the hell you gonna do in Mississippi, bro? Yeah. Oh, it's never gonna end, bro. The requirements are only gonna get crazier. You feel me?
Costs over $100,000 a year in all 50 states, cementing a permanent shift away from upward mobility and instead towards economic survival. And so what we begin to recognize is that this cycle continuously repeats itself. Throughout the 17th and 18th century, society could not have imagined that the nation's agricultural base would almost fully transition into manufacturing. Throughout the Industrial Revolution to the 50s and 60s, society could not have imagined that the nation would be in pursuit of white-collar office jobs. And throughout the 70s and 80s, all the way to present time, society could not have imagined that the national pursuit would be in automating and replacing.
I don't like that take. I don't like that take of we couldn't have imagined. I think we actually really definitely have already imagined. If you go read some books, not saying he doesn't, but there's so many fiction, sci-fi, even scientist predictions at the time of what the future would be like. And I think there was a ton of time to adjust, but the reality is it's not that we couldn't imagine, it's just that when things are good, no one wants to imagine things being bad. That's just how we treat these things. The job market's good, none of us want to, man, but you know, AI should be getting better in the next 5 years. No one wanted to say that in 2019. No one wanted to say that in 2018. And then it just, boom, it was. One day it wasn't, and then it was good. And when it was good, then it becomes a scramble. And so I think as a society, we got to do a better job of seeing the things down the road and taking them seriously before they even get there. But what does that mean? That requires good leaders. That means people have to vote for the good leaders. Do people vote for good leaders? I would say not. I would literally say 7 times out of 10, fuck no. We usually are voting for bad leaders or leaders that people just don't want. It's going to get crazy, man. I feel like one of the things I might review in the near future is Project 2027 because it's supposed to be geared towards AI. But I want to hear his personal experience on trying to get a job. So let's see what he said.
What I believe to be one of the most damaging aspects of all of this that has occurred, maybe equally as damaging as all of the components I've mentioned in this video, is the way society degrades anyone that isn't following the traditional path, that isn't working what society perceives to be a good job.
Yeah, that's very accurate. I think the admiration that people now have for trade school and people who pursue other avenues is going to get to all-time highs because it's very clear degrees don't mean shit anymore. They just don't. You know, they're cool to say, they're cool to have, and you're not bad if you have one. But man, just stacking a bunch of degrees on top of each other and a bunch of titles is not going to get you anywhere. It's going to get you in that unemployment line with a lot of debt very fast. And that's not to discourage people from getting degrees, but now it used to be I could get a degree and not have a plan, but because I went to college, I'm going to be straight. Now it's the opposite. Nigga, if you don't have a plan, don't even go to college because you're just about to rack up a bunch of debt. And I see we in the chat, hell yeah, no cap. Like, really, no cap. It can get crazy for you. So, you know, you just gotta move smarter, but also work harder. It can, what Drewski say, it could go either way.
When one of my first jobs was I worked for a
Why it take him so long to say what his job was, gang?
garbage company. My stepdad drove the garbage truck, and I would be the guy that would hop out and would put the trash can into the trash. I don't know how to explain it, but everybody
We all know what a garbage man is, man.
knows how a garbage truck works. And so that's what I did. And what I noticed instantly during that summer was the way that society perceives you. I went from just being a 16-year-old high school boy to being looked at as if I was like.
Imagine bringing your side project to life just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
You know, I ran away from home or something.
That's a really good point. One of my first jobs, was pizza delivery. I used to deliver pizzas, and that's why. And then I used to be a server. I used to work at the mall. And let me tell you something. Servers, pizza delivery people, working at the mall, and like I worked server like at a chain, like a Chili's type shit. You are one of the most degraded people in society by profession. You feel me? People act, man, when I used to deliver pizzas, people used to act like I was on the verge of homelessness. I was just 19. You feel me? When I used to be a server, I was 20, 21. You know, people act like I was a loser or something in life. I was just in college, just trying to, make a couple extra dollars. You feel me? Yeah, exactly. Garbage men these days, they can make more than most of the people that look down on them. Like, it's goofy. You would be surprised. I got buddies that work in trades that are killing the game. Like, I would instantly, I'm not going to say trade my life because I'm not that type of person, but I have a good amount of student debt. I went to college. I make good money, but bro, there's this thing I learned, and it's not that it's something special, but it's called a lifestyle of leverage. Where, okay, you went to college, right? Let's just say you racked up 50K debt. Okay, you graduated, you got a good job. What's the first thing in your life that you're going to have to buy? It's probably a car. Because whatever car you was driving in college, that shit going to die on you, period. So now you done bought the whip. Now you got a fat ass car note. You feel me? I'm blessed. I own my car. But still, I'm still have to look for another one eventually, right? And then you're paying a fat ass apartment rent in a new city because you didn't go move back home with mommy and daddy, right? So now you got a car note, an apartment rent, and you're on your entry level salary, bro. Entry level sal. You know what I'm saying? And guess what? What's the next thing that's probably gonna happen in your life? You're gonna find a love, or you're gonna meet a girl. So now you're dating. You guys buy the dates. You buying the tickets. You go on vacation. And before you know it, you really are struggling to accumulate savings. You're struggling to save for a house. And this is a reality for a lot of people. That's why you see these extreme scenarios of people saying, yeah, I'm 200K a year living check to check. I think that's absurd. But at a much smaller scale, making 60K out of college or 50K out of college used to be really good money. It's not anymore because of that leveraged lifestyle. Your lifestyle inflation occurs. So yeah, man, it gets brutal. It gets brutal.
And so it implanted the seed in my mind. I graduated high school in 2018, instantly got a job working for the
Me too, gang.
local bank. I now thought, wow, I have something that society will perceive that I'm doing a good job, that I have a good job, and that I could truly make a difference. Because I thought that banking was like, it's a wonderful life. I truly thought I can make a difference working at a bank. Instantly, during Christmas break, I went over to my friend's house, and his family asked, so what have you been up to? And I told him, oh, I work at a bank, thinking it was going to be like, oh, that's great. And what I was met with was instantly, you will never make money doing that. You need to go back to college. And so now I'm sitting there, and within an instance, I now perceived my job as inadequate. Especially what that forced me to do was to focus on all of the issues with the job that I had. And which you all know is that society perceives banking as being deceitful, untrustworthy, because of all of the deceitful and untrustworthy things that have happened. And so I then I started feeling like I'm working in a bad job, even though I was saving money, I was progressing throughout the company, I was doing my best, I was helping clients, I was doing it in the most honest and trustworthy way that
I'm not gonna lie, this one hit me personally. I have worked at a bank branch. I have worked at a small financial services firm. I now work on the backside of bigger banking. Yeah, banking is perceived in a certain way, but I think more importantly, his point, which I really like that he made, is perception is everything when it comes to work. But perception doesn't tell you what that person is doing financially, how that job is affecting them emotionally, spiritually, relationship wise with the people in their lives. And I think that's become the biggest juxtaposition. And even for me, the way I look at my career, I always tell people, I'm like, hey, regardless of what it is, man, even this streaming shit, I enjoy it. Dude, if I make 50, 60K a year and that's just what it is, I'm cool. Like, it is what it is, because at least I will have dignity in my profession and what I do. I will be happy with the work that I'm doing because it's something I enjoy. But a lot of times the problem is we put so much, you know, we put so much emphasis on those jobs that sound fancy. So imagine he's being told as a banker it's not going to pan out. But if he said he was a medical doctor or a lawyer, people would be like, oh my gosh, he's living the life, living the dream. Bro, those people, yeah, they can make 150, 200K a year, but they may have 600K sitting in debt that they owe. You know, they may be struggling to live check to check, and maybe they didn't get that big job. You know, a lot of times being a medical doctor, depending on what you go in for, and being a lawyer, depending on what you're actually able to, what firm you're able to end up at, that's going to dictate the pay. It's not, there's no guaranteed pay routes. You know, the only guaranteed quote unquote pay routes is like for athletes. And even then, you know, most athletes go broke. And so I think there's a lot of deception about job title versus job pay versus job livelihood, right? And those three things, they're not discussed enough in school. And I'm going to blame a lot of this on school, because school was the one that was telling everyone to just go to college. After my first year in college, I knew that shit was some bullshit. You know, that's when I just said, all right, let me just get career oriented, because college obviously not it. This is crazy, man. This is just sad. I feel bad for bro. I'm glad he making these videos, man. It seems like he's doing
I possibly could. But every day I walked in there, I felt like I was doing a bad job. On the opposite side of that coin, going into, before I became a banker, all I was heard, or before I went into banking, all I heard from a certain segment of people in my life was, you need to go to college, you need to get an education so you can get a good job. As soon as I started working at the bank, that went away. And all of a sudden I was a human being. I was asked about, you know, how is my life going? How is work going? What do you think about the economy? And what was so interesting to see is that when I made the decision to leave my job, because I didn't believe like it was a good job, I could truly see it wasn't a good job. I wanted to make a difference in life. That when I perceived, or when I pursued what I believed to be a good path, a good job, something that I could do something, that certain segment of individuals in my life all of a sudden didn't ask me how my life was going, didn't ask me anything about anything. I would hear through the grapevine, when is he going to get a real job? Doesn't he know he's going to run out of money?
That shit is crazy, man. He got some ultra pocket watching niggas in his life, bro. Oh shit! I hope our stream is still going. I guess I'm just a little frozen. No. Yeah, facts. He got the ultra. Okay, here we go. We back. But yeah, he got the ultra pocket watching niggas in his life, bro. Like damn, bro. He damn near spilling some real deep like shit on niggas right now. Anyways, I feel him. Like, and you know what, the black community, I'm not even gonna shit on, bro. The black community is like this too. You know, when you are a black person and you're doing well for yourself, people be hating on you. You know, they start talking down on whatever you're doing, and then when you're not doing well, they hating on you again. So I think we're in this era now where, you know, all the traditional go be a doctor or a lawyer, or, you know, hey, go work in this field or just go get a degree. That all that talk has to stop. We got to ask people, hey, what are you passionate about? How can we monetize that? Right. And also, if we can't monetize that, how can we get you in a situation where maybe you don't love the work, but you make a decent living and can live a life of dignity so that you can pursue your passions? You feel me? Because I tell people, man, the best thing I've ever heard is a job is a job is a job, right? Whether you like the job or don't like the job, it's tough to get up every day, bro, and do that. You feel me? But if that job provides for you, it's a good job. Don't let people talk you out of your spot, bro. Don't let people talk you out of your spot. So I feel bad for bro. I hope he goes to see a therapist and cut some of them people off. Okay, so this last chapter is
Every time I hit a bottom.
The last chapter is just called People Need to Know They're Doing a Good Job. When you give up finding a good job, society will call you lazy despite you searching endlessly for a job that best suits you. That's a bar. It's so annoying when others say we had tough times. The elders piece, the elders piece definitely hit. He said, "Yo, make me a mod so I can ban people. I will definitely make you a mod." Let's see if I know how to do that. Let's see. How do I invite? Oh, I don't know what I did. Yep, facts. I made you a mod, gang. So yeah, so you can get rid of some of these people. Because I don't even know what that is. It says I don't know what that dude talking about, but yeah, it's so annoying when others say we had tough times too. 24-year-old with a degree. Hey man, I think my last thoughts on this, and I was talking to my homie, my roommate, shout out Mike. He said, the way the economy is going, there's going to have to be a large correction because you can't keep having employment like this where young people can't get jobs out of college because of AI and then expect any good to happen as a result. So, because of that, something's going to have to change. And I used to not believe that. I used to think, oh, it's just another one of the cycles. But this feels different than a cycle. This feels like something that's really going to have to impact and change the world as we know it and what income means and what resources mean. Because at the end of the day, we only earn money to spend on resources. Everything else is just a commodity. Everything else is just something that we want, but not what we need. And I think we have to start thinking as a society, how do we focus on the things that we need and how can we disperse those things so that we're not having to spend money on water, shelter, food in the same capacity as we have previously, because the prices of those things are only getting higher. And eventually it's going to be at a point where we can't afford them. It says that we're streaming together. I don't know why it says that. Okay, but anyways, I appreciate you, Flacco. Appreciate you hopping in today, man. You feel me? That's big motivation. Even just to have someone, this is like my first day even interacting with the chat. You feel me? Because of you. So I'm really happy for anyone who tuned in. And yeah, man, we're going to get some clips out. Follow us on the socials. You already know where to get at us, man. And we're going to continue. We're going to continue these type of chats. You feel me? So y'all have a good one. I'll talk to y'all soon.